Hi folks, we're Tacitus today at your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio, radio, no pictures live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of parents that are committed and dedicated to doing everything they can to ensure or at least give a good start to their children and prepare them for adulthood and a competitive existence out there so that they lead fulfilling lives and successful lives, that sort of thing. So now this sort of came up recently. Some people we know, they've got a couple of kids in like middle high school, and they were talking about the lengths they were going to, the parents and sister, and the things they wanted to do and were doing to help the kids sort of do well and give them a good start in life, all that sort of thing. Things that you think most parents would want for their children. Certainly, I wanted my children to do better than I had and have a better life than I did. That didn't mean my life was bad or I didn't do well, but I wanted them to do better. And sometimes you look back over your own life and think about, well, this was a disappointment, or that didn't turn out as I would have hoped, and then you want better for your own children. So it's that type of thing. Now, the level of commitment and dedication different parents have, and their means and resources to do so, by the way, of course, differ. And so I want to go back to this is at high school. Now there was a kid there. He had a sister who was a couple of years younger than him. And I'm just trying to think, this would have been maybe year like the fifth year of high school. So we're talking first year of senior high school. So I wasn't really that chummy with him, but he was always very well turned out. His clothes were always beautifully pressed and washed, and there was there was never a sort of a hair out of place, and he there was he just seemed to be always immaculately presented and so on, and the standard at high school, this was a reasonably sort of upper middle class area, so the standard was the bar was reasonably high, but even in a high bar scenario, this guy looked sort of well presented. He was a pretty good student. I always thought he was a better student than I was, and although in the graduation exam we got about the same. We graduated university, we got about the same. We both made it into law, that sort of thing. I won a high school prize, and he won a high school prize. So there wasn't a whole lot of difference between us, but or so I thought. And I was. He said to come round to his place one day. I can't remember what we were doing. I think it was interpreting some new book that had come along. Anyway, so it was over to go and met his parents, and the house was a nice house. His parents weren't obviously poor or anything, but very neat. Everything in the house seemed to be of quality. Ming Dynasty plates and this sort of thing. And I went into his his room, and it was wow. It was like a fucking public library. That there was floor to ceiling shelves and even little step ladder things we could get up to the top shelf, and he had books galore on it and everything, encyclopedias and this and that. He had a very sort of professional looking desk and so on, and for his study, and again, very neat, and everything seemed to sort of have its place. And but just in the overall sort of scheme of things, how much his parents did for him. Now, I'm not sure they were very affectionate, but they were determined to do all that they could sort of outside of that. I'm not sure they understood affection necessarily. I say that by thinking back now rather than realizing it at the time. But there were things that they, for example, it was a fairly cold day and it was windy, and we were going to go down to the shop or something, And his mother said, "Well, don't go out. It's cold and windy there. Look, make sure you put some moisturizer cream on and on your hands too." And she came up and quite, I suppose this was affection, I guess, but quite sort of gently rubbed cream into his face and said, "Well, you finish it off," and then into his hands so that the now this is something that at his age he probably thought it was silly and stop fussing over me, mum, or that type of thing. But this is not a bad thing necessarily. And as today, for example, if I go out into the cold, windy weather, I'll put on face cream and hand cream, given depending again on the weather. But that isn't something I sort of didn't cotton on to till I was like in my 30s or something. But his mother was introducing him to things such as different shampoos, what they would do. This was something my parents never talked about. Different shampoos and this is what this is how you present yourself. This is how you keep your skin looking good and so on. So things like that you may, at the time you may think, well, yeah, it's a bit gay, isn't it? But and whether you think that or not, sort of beside the point. But nearly every man, or most men, certainly people that would exist in sort of office jobs or any situation where not like a labourer in the roads, but any sort of situation where personal presentation was an issue, and that's going to be in most white collar jobs, then these are lessons that are quite worthwhile. What the shampoos and the face creams and the hand creams and so on. It has its place, whether or not you think it's gay or unnecessary. For when you're 16 or 17 or something, you could eat Tupperware and still have great skin. But it's if you're helping it along by again thinking about your presentation appearance, what's wrong with that? And things like other things that in the few times I was over there, we were going to go on a decent, like a bushwalk or something with some group, I think it was. And his parents, was dad said, "Oh, well, you'll need comfortable shoes for that." So what are those shoes I got you that they were like Rockports or a well-known comfortable, shoe brand for decent, walking decent distances. Remember those shoes and wear such a so-and-so socks with them. Those socks will do better. So they were talking to him about different types of fabric and socks to be more comfortable on his feet, sort of shoes be more why they would be more comfortable. So introducing him to things that were typically appear only as one becomes a bit more sophisticated and experienced. They were introducing these things to him, telling him why and telling him how and how to understand it and relate to it, even though again he was I think we were about 17 at the time. And I used to, I was sort of almost perplexed by that. Why would his parents even talk about this sort of thing? Aren't they overreaching on their is it intrusive even to go this far? And no, I think back now, and I think no, that was good advice. I had to learn those lessons through sore feet and blisters and so on. But this guy was being introduced to it. Now there are other things. His mother. This is his mother mentioned to me. She said, "Hey, Billy Bob, do you dance?" And I thought, "Oh, no. What do you mean? No, not really." And she's, "Oh well, what's his face, Paul? We as soon as he's old enough, we sent him to dancing lessons. Girls, women, they love men who can dance. They like to dance. It's a real icebreaker socially. It can get him into." It helps sort of smooth the relationships with women. Women like to, whether it's out night clubbing or back in the day discotheques, that sort of thing. And so he and he was quite a competent dancer. I don't know how many years he got of dancing lessons. And there are other things that they were teaching him, refinement and how to be a classy guy. And again, this was something my parents didn't do, or I actually, off the top of my head, I can't think of it. Oh, maybe a few, but it was something that was rare. You just didn't see it around. And there were only a few sort of boys or girls, for that matter, that got this type of dedicated parents really looking at how can we help, anything we can do to help you be successful in the future and have a comfortable, fulfilling life and a satisfied, fulfilling life. We'll do it. We'll put that effort in now, and we'll give you all the guidance that we can. Something else was they sent him to French lessons. So, a private coach, the whole 9 yards. And so he could read like the Four Musketeers, Alexander Dumas. He could read. He had actually the French version on his bookshelf. He could read the version in French. He was that good at French, and this and they encouraged him to go to. There was like a French Australian club or something in Sydney at the time. They encouraged him to go to that, and he was mixing with people who were rather refined and cultured in their tastes, and this was reflected in how he was perceiving the world. So this was a useful thing in some ways. You may say, well, what a waste of time. Why don't you sit down and hit the books and learn mathematics or something? But this was a wider cultural thing and gave him a much broader awareness of the world, and again, the culture made him more comfortable in social settings that others would have been uncomfortable in, and so on. They also gave him, again, private tutors, and they had the means to do this, and they had a very nice piano actually in the house, and they had lessons on piano. I first encountered him with the piano lessons when I was a very, very ordinary and self-taught piano player. So I was playing, I think it was a Cat Stevens song from memory, and was making hard work of it. Like I wasn't getting the timing right and fluffing some of the chords, that sort of thing. But I mean, you could tell what it was. People listening go, "Oh, that's the Cat Stevens." So then he came into this was, I think, in the music room at high school. He came into the room and he said, "Oh, you're making a mess of this," or words to that effect. And then he sat down and he played it almost perfectly. I remember, feeling a little inadequate at that, but. So he was a piano. I think he played the violin as well. Yes, he did. He played the violin and was quite good at that too. And again, that introduced him into circles. So he was socially very comfortable in sophisticated circles. And so if there was a room with a lot of people in it and people talking, and somebody might say, well, and what, tell us about so-and-so. Well, he could speak with confidence and assurance about certain issues. They also sent him to like public speaking, junior sort of sub-adult type public speaking and debating things. So he was a very confident speaker and talker, and he had no nervousness at all as he spoke to the crowd and these sorts of things. Now I remember sort of feeling sort of rather inadequate in his presence. Because I didn't have that level of confidence or sophistication or cultural whatevers, and I wasn't as good a piano player, and I couldn't play the violin at all. So I remember feeling quite inadequate. I remember trying very hard to fight off these feelings of inadequacy when I was in his place, and his parents might talk to me, and I had this feeling that I couldn't measure up to their standards. And when you look at, say, diversity, equity, inclusion, affirmative action today, what a lot of the affirmative action appointment, people who are underqualified and no way they could do this, they're only being given the job because of a quota, how they must feel. I understand that feeling of inadequacy, that you're dealing with someone that can do the job, that can do it well, can do it much better than you. And that makes you feel bad about yourself. And therefore you can then accuse that person of being an indirect passive racist or something. You make me feel bad because I can't do it. And I remember trying as a kid, trying to fight off those feelings of inadequacy, because he just seemed to be so sophisticated and so self-assured and so well-dressed and so, everything. And he was much more relaxed with girls than I was, very chatty in ways that I wasn't able to be. And very few other kids, by the way, were able to be. So he seemed to have all those things, but he didn't have it naturally. He didn't sort of, come out of the womb, or one day he woke up and he had all these things. He had parents that were really putting all that work in, all that time, all that thought, all that effort, and money too, into that. Now, how did that affect him? later. I didn't, particularly stay in touch with him or anything like that. And I felt I had very little in common with him. My parents were quite sort of direct. You hit the books, do that, and otherwise shut up. Well, not that, but that was the focus. You have to become a specialist surgeon, and that's it. So everything had to be geared towards that. But the little sophistications, again, the shampoo, the face creams, things like that, things along those lines. And I think it was another one. He was getting some sort of minor skin rash and on his arm or his hand or something like that. And his mother was. He mentioned it in passing to her, and she, I've got the thing for that. You use the such and such, cloth, and use this soap or cream. There's a soap for this. He mentioned something else about he didn't, the light in his room wasn't good enough. He was hurting his eyes when he was studying, and his dad almost leapt out of his chair and I'll fix that. So very dedicated to, and just very few parents are like that. So anyway, he goes on to become a lawyer, and he's in private practice representing big time mafia bosses and making a fuckload of money, by the way. He's got this huge yacht in one of the most expensive yacht mooring harbours in Australia. And I know he married a girl that I knew actually in the mid-20s. I thought she was smoking hot, this girl, so I was a little put out that she sort of chose him instead of me. But I can understand the overall scheme of things. So, but I don't know whether they're still together or not. Would I say he's had a happy, fulfilling life? Well, if your job is to represent mafia bosses, I don't know, but he's certainly got a lot of money. It's hard to say how the whole thing played out over time. Did this help? His parents gave him actually raise the bar to a point where he couldn't meet the expectations were built into him through this upbringing, and therefore was constantly haunted by it. Was that how it went? I don't know. Given his all-round sophistication and accomplishments, even by the time that he started university, I can only guess that many others would have had that sense of inadequacy that I did when I was around him, and I was reasonably well accomplished, So, but certainly nowhere near to his standard. And so, I don't know. Did he have a fulfilling life? I think many would have shunned him or not wanted to be around him simply because he was so. So it would have had the reverse or the perverse effect of meaning that nobody wanted to be in his presence because he was just so accomplished and so high achieving at such a young age. So it can go both ways there. But coming back to the issue of parents being dedicated to, maybe those parents went a bit too far. Maybe they overindulged him in attempting to create this sophisticated man of the world in his teenage years. You could argue that. But one thing is clear. I look back now, or as I got older, I look back and I was filled with admiration and appreciation of the effort and the time and the forethought and the care that his parents put into him and the younger sister, and that's something that should we all admire it, or is it misplaced? I'll close with this. When I was looking for an image on like Google for and I put in indulgent parent and I put that in just one image of two parents and a kid to put into the thumbnail, and there wasn't not fucking one white couple with a kid, not one. Every indulgent parent was black, and with this faux sophistication that there was no street gangs having shootouts in Chicago. These were all very classy looking black people. There's not one. No, I'm sure if I'd kept on searching, I could have found one. But in the first couple of pages that I pulled up, there was not one white couple with a white kid. All the depictions were of black or Hispanic or single mothers. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.